Well, my tip was really focused towards I led lawyers for the majority of my career, and lawyers who come into the Air Force generally come in by direct appointment. Most of them do, not all of them. They have no connection to the military.
Hey everybody, it's Jason McClaren with the Leadership Loading Podcast. I want to welcome my guest today, Chad Carter. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so yeah, Chad and I were talking before we started recording. So we're going to start off like normal. Chad, tell us what led you to join the military.
Well, I was an Air Force judge advocate, and I retired as Air Force judge advocate. And I went to law school, and I wanted to be a prosecutor. I wanted to be a prosecutor at a DA's office. And so I went to law school, and I took the bar, passed the bar, and went and applied to be a prosecutor, and I didn't get picked. And so I'm like, shoot, now what am I going to do? Because I really didn't have a plan B. And so I did what lawyers call hanging a shingle, where you just open your own office and you say, hey, come on in, I'll help you with whatever you got. Needless to say, I did not find that very satisfying after the grand visions I had about being this great prosecutor. So one day was on the computer and I came across the Air Force JAG website, and didn't think too much about it at the time. But I just, for some reason, I kept coming back to it in my mind and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I think I really started to get the call to service and thinking about it at that time. And so I submitted an application to be a JAG. And again, I did not get picked. So, but that time, by then I had decided I want to be an Air Force officer. Big Blue had me at that point. And I applied again. And the second time I applied, I told them, look, I'm going to be an Air Force officer. So you can accept me into the JAG Corps and I'll be a JAG. Or if not, well, then I'm going to apply to go to officer training school and I'm going to come in as a line officer and I'm going to be a line officer with a law degree. So you make the call. And I have no idea if that had any impact on them at all, but I did get picked the second time and I'm incredibly blessed because of it.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to, just keep trying things. My entry to the Air Force is a little different. I just did the enlisted thing, went and showed up, signed a piece of paper, and joined. I did get put into diesel mechanic, which I did not want to do, but at that time I just was like, I'll take whatever I can get. Wanted to get out of my small town, and I wanted to be a security forces, and couldn't do that due to medical conditions. But luckily, I went and talked to my recruiter after I had signed, and we changed it to general open, which then ended up being a firefighter for everybody that's listened to this podcast. So that springboarded me and got me into what I'm doing today. But yeah, it definitely helped me join and get where I'm at today. So there's always two ways to go down a path. You don't have to always take the first one that you look at.
That's right. Persistence is key. You might think you have plans, but life steps in and you got to go with what life throws at you. And if you don't succeed the first time, keep trying if that's what you really want to do.
100%. And so how long did you serve?
I was in for 20 years as a judge advocate. I was a staff judge advocate on 3 tours, 2 stateside and 1 overseas. Staff judge advocate, for those that don't know, it's basically the officer that's in charge of the base legal office. You're not only are you the number 1 person on military justice, that's court martials and things like that, but then all the other areas of practice, legal assistance, claims, labor law, all the other areas that the law touches on that the military deals with, you're in charge of providing that advice. Throughout my 20 years, I've supervised over 200 active duty reservists or civilian personnel. It was a great experience. I got to do some great things. I got to teach law at the Air Force Academy. I got to go to the Army JAG School in Charlottesville, Virginia, spend a year there, get my master's of law. And on the non-JAG side, I was the commander of the base honor guard at 2 different bases, Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma and at the Air Force Academy. So I'm really blessed to have gotten the great experience that I did.
Yeah, the honor guard, that's another thing you can do on the side, like a extra duty. And a lot of people don't know that. There's the fancy honor guard that goes out and does performances and stuff, but each base has an honor guard for day-to-day things. I did that when I was deployed, and I think our commander for that honor guard was JAG also, if I remember. But yeah, cool.
It's funny you mentioned it. extra duty because that's exactly how I got into it the first time. I was at my first duty station and I went to a staff meeting with my boss one morning and he said, the base honor guard's looking for officers. Congratulations, Lieutenant Carter. You are now on the honor guard. Report to the honor guard building at 1630. And so I did. But I'm glad he did that because it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and sometimes those extra duties can lead into a full-time career. You know, people do it on the side or do it, like you said, after hours, and they end up becoming a full-time whatever it is. So,
Yes, sir.
all right. So you retired and then you got out. Now you're in Louisiana doing the Bayou Veterans Advocacy.
Right. So my day job is I'm a partner at the law firm of Parker Alexander in Monroe, Louisiana. We're an injury law firm. That's what I do. You know, that's what keeps the lights on. But my passion is helping veterans, and I formed a nonprofit called Bayou Veterans Advocacy, and it advocates for veterans' rights. You know, 18 of my 20 years in the Air Force, we were a nation at war, and I saw with my own eyes what those wars did to my friends, my coworkers, even my little brother who was a Marine. I saw how it beat them up physically and mentally, and I saw how the system let them down. And so I decided, you know, I made it my personal mission. I want to do everything I can to help out, and so that's why we formed this nonprofit, and that's why I'm advocating in the areas that I'm advocating now.
And that's the same thing with Go Heroes that runs this podcast. Is I got out and I had 20 days from my, hey, you're getting out of the Air Force to I was walking out of the gate. So I didn't have any transition time, didn't have any, hey, let me get my degree or whatever before I get out. And so that's why I started Go Heroes to help with that part. You know, hey, let me look at resumes and mock interviews and these podcasts where we talk to people like yourself, so people can get some of that background. And why do you think it's a staple of military people or military service members to kind of go into these nonprofits, either existing ones or start them like we have done?
You know, I think it goes back to that call to service that I talked about earlier. You know, I don't think when you get out of the military that you necessarily lose that. You know, so we still have a call to service, whether it's to help our community that we live in now, or if we want to continue to help the military community or veterans. I certainly feel that way, and I would imagine most of your guests feel that way as well.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you have your full-time gig. I have my full-time gig. We're just doing this, you know, to give back and support the community and fill those gaps that we've seen. I know when I first started Go Heroes, I had a lot of people say, "Oh, there's already XYZ organization that does that," and I was like, "Yeah, but you know, there's still holes here in the Dallas area where we're at, and the other things we do with emergency preparedness and leadership training that some other organizations don't do." So I think there's always gaps to fill, and I think it's beneficial that we're doing that.
You know, speaking of the gaps, like you addressed, one of the particular areas I'm really focused on right now is improving mental health care for our veterans. You know, there's the VA, man, I guess they do the best that they can, but there's just not enough mental health providers available. You know, in my opinion, there should be a mental health provider in every VA clinic. That includes the rural clinics, not just the big hospitals. But they can't do it because of funding or whatever. You know, I know that they don't pay as well as the private sector. Maybe that has something to do with it. But I also know that the government is making a lot of cuts now in areas where they say things are not needed. So, you know, I'm hoping they can take some of this funding that they're getting because, you know, telehealth is great. It works for some people. In rural areas, it might not work because internet connection could be bad, or there could just be older veterans like Vietnam era folks who just want to sit down and talk to somebody in person, and they don't want to, you know, look at a screen. And I don't think that's unreasonable to ask the VA, the government, to provide this. You know, and another area is peer support teams. Are you familiar with peer support teams, Jason?
No, not dirt.
Well, basically that is a network of folks who are veterans themselves, usually combat veterans, who are there to help veterans, especially new ones who are transitioning out of the military, to say, look, man, I've been there, I've done it, I got through it, it was hell, but I got through it, you can get through it too, and we're going to get through this together. I mean, those are absolutely crucial. And about 10 years ago, Congress passed an act, the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention for Veterans Act, I think it was, where they specifically codified this procedure, these peer support teams. And with the VA to take the lead. But it kind of withered on the vine. The pilot program ended in 2019, and it's just kind of up to grassroots folks like us now to reinvigorate these peer support programs. And it's great to have, a combat veteran who can be there and say, hey, man, you've been through this, I've got you. But people who are at risk for suicide, veterans or not, there's three main areas that cause that. There's relationship problems, financial problems, or legal problems. And so what I want to do for veterans is I want to get subject matter experts who can work with these peer support teams. So if they identify a veteran who's having a problem in one of those three areas, let's get him over and let's have, I volunteer my time. So I want to find, financial folks and counseling folks who are available to volunteer their time to help veterans to get them through this. And those are really my main areas of advocacy right now.
Yeah, now that you mention it, there are a few here in Dallas that do that. There's a horse equine therapy, but they also have an offshoot, I can't remember the name of it, that does the mental health, and it's all veterans and first responders that volunteer. But like you said, it's all volunteering. So if you don't have someone actually running it, making schedules or making goals for the organization to keep it running, it's going to fizzle out. And so we need some kind of backbone or some kind of, overarching leadership to kind of keep it going.
You're right. And there's a way you can be an official certified peer support specialist, but you got to go to class for 2 weeks, and it costs like $500 to take a class. And I mean, what veteran's got the time to take 2 weeks off of work to go do that, to get this certification? I think the government folks could make this easier, and make this more realistic and really improve involvement.
Well, Go Heroes, we would definitely sponsor anyone that, if it's a financial issue, we would sponsor that, because we're all about getting certifications and anything that helps you professionally, but also helps other veterans.
I appreciate
the time off. That's another thing. I don't know if we make it virtual and they can take the class, after hours. I think I do a lot of that when we have veterans that want Lean Six Sigma training. We work with our partner that teaches the class. They do it nights and weekends, and they get their yellow belt or green belt, whatever it is. So yeah, anything we can do to help on that side, let us know. If you or anybody listening to this, if you need help, we'll work with you. If you're willing to put in the time, we can help, some financial gains and get that going.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Like you said, these are common sense solutions. We just need to find the resources to help the veterans.
I know there's here in Texas, we have TexVet, kind of like a pool of all the veteran organizations. But personally, I mean, I've seen some issues already with that. Like Go Heroes, we get calls for people needing rent assistance, which we don't do. They call us, they're like, I need rent assistance or I need mortgage assistance. And I'm like, there's tons of organizations. So something out there is getting mixed signals, and, the wrong information is getting to these veterans. And so then we end up having to almost play the role of a veteran service officer and get them the right information, which is fine, but we're not that resource.
Yeah, and I know in Louisiana there's a military assistance fund for veterans where they can get some money for certain things, but I've looked at that and there just seems to be a lot of red tape involved, and they will only approve it for certain things and not others. Again, I just think we should inject some common sense into this and help people that need help.
Well, hopefully with the funding reallocations, maybe they can do that. It'd be nice to just have it needs to be run like a business, I think. And I work in healthcare full time, and I see the same thing with the VA, like you mentioned. They're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall. And unfortunately, a lot of these people that get assigned leadership roles, they get it because they're in the right place at the right time. We need some actual leadership, but like you said, when they're not getting paid what they could make in the private sector, you run into those issues. So
yes, sir.
All right, Chad. Well, what's one leadership tip you have for new leaders?
Well, my tip was really focused towards I led lawyers for the majority of my career, and lawyers who come into the Air Force generally come in by direct appointment. Most of them do, not all of them. They have no connection to the military. They've just gotten out of law school, they've just taken the bar, and bam, now they're in the military with usually no prior experience. And they come in and they're around all these other junior officers who've been doing this for a long time. A lot of them are prior enlisted, and they don't fit in. And so my job as their leader is to get them to fit in. And I would force them out of their comfort zone. Like I pointed out, my boss had me go join the base honor guard. And that was great. That got me involved on base. So I'm always pushing my people to get outside their comfort zone and do something else. So at all of my stops as a staff judge advocate, every Friday, we would head over to the club because that's where the commanders were and the members of the units were. And that's where we got a lot of our work done. And commanders appreciated it. And the people on the base saw, well, this lawyer's over here and he's actually talking to me and he's pretty cool. And, he's not an alien like I thought all lawyers were. That's just a wall that we have to break down to get commanders to trust us if they're going to take our legal advice and run with it. And so that's been my big tip is to get out, get involved, meet people, because that's how you're going to gain their trust.
It's almost that situational leadership. You have to tailor your leadership to each person on your team. And if you've got 5 to 7 direct reports, you may have to be out every day, shaking hands and meeting with them and just tweaking what's going on in the field.
Yes, sir.
All right, Chad. And then how could people get a hold of you if they wanted to?
Well, you can get a hold of me at my firm's website, parkeralexander.com, or also my nonprofit has a website, BayouVets.org. So either one of those, you can reach out to me and I'll get right back to you.
Awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes below and people can click right on it and go to check it out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Chad, thanks for coming on the show today.
Really appreciate it, Jason.
Hey, everybody. This episode of the Leadership Loading Podcast was brought to you by Go Heroes Inc., goheroes.org. If you'd like to be a sponsor, go ahead and check out our website or email us and we'll get you all the information you need.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership inspired.